Hi everyone, we are going to continue reading Runaway Ralph. We are in the middle of chapter 4 called Chum. Let's see what happens next. Don't stop now, pleaded Ralph. What happened? A great human hand, a hand that smelled of dog, and Ralph shuddered. Reached in and picked up several of my brothers and sisters. Let me tell you, that woke us all up in a hurry. We were terrified. We scrambled around, trying to hide behind our mother, under the wheel, in some cedar shavings, any place. I was slower than the rest because, you see, I was cramped from being slept on by brothers and sisters, and so the hand, that terrible doggy hand, got me. It didn't matter. That hand got all us youngsters and turned us upside down in a most undignified fashion. And then we were put into 2 cages, one for boys and one for girls. What for? Asked Ralph. Don't rush me, said Chum, picking up a sunflower seed in his paws and cracking it with his teeth. When he had eaten the kernels, he continued. Let me tell you, it was a terrible shock. Shortly after, the doggy hand picked up our cage and loaded it into what is called a station wagon. I know. Ralph was eager to show off his knowledge. I used to see them in the parking lot outside the hotel. They were always full of children and luggage and sometimes a dog or 2. Chum ignored the interruption. We soon found ours was not the only cage to go into the station wagon. Our sisters were loaded in beside us with a box full of turtles, a cage full of rather downhearted canaries, and 2 large cages, one containing puppies and the other some very silly kittens, oh yes, and a cage of white mice. White mice? Ralph said scornfully. Anybody, not just owls, could see white mice in the dark. Then the man with the doggy, smelling hands climbed into the front seat along with his wife, and we were off. Where to? Asked Ralph. The county fair, answered Chum, and it was a terrible trip. Kittens mewed, puppies whimpered, turtles scrabbled around in their box. What's a county fair? Interrupted Ralph. It's a noisy place, said Chum. It's full of people yelling, children laughing and shrieking, machinery that whirls and spins and plays music, all sorts of animals that neigh and moo and baa. It was hot and dusty, and our cages were set out in a booth. And by that time, we hamsters were exhausted. It had been light for several hours, and we hadn't a wink of sleep. Oh, I know what you mean, said Ralph with feeling. That was only the beginning, continued Chum. A steady stream of people, mostly children, passed by our cages. Big, little, most of them sticky, and all of them noisy. Look, Mommy! Look, Daddy! Look at the darling little hamsters! I want one, Daddy! Buy me a hamster! All morning long. Parents were better, though. Don't be silly. Of course you can't have a hamster. Well, you didn't take care of the last hamster you had. Come along. We don't have time to look at hamsters. Then a whole busload of children, all of them wearing white t-shirts, with letters across the front. Camp t-shirts, interrupted Ralph knowledgeably. From Happy Acres? Yeah, they came crowding around the booth. They didn't have any parents with them, so they bought pets. You? Asked Ralph. Me, said Chum. I was bought by that grubby little girl with freckles. And to make a long story short, the doggy hand stuffed me into a hot little cardboard box with a few so-called air holes poked into it, and I spent the rest of the day being jousted around, peeked at, and fed bits of caramel corn. That sounds good, said Ralph. Yeah, maybe to a mouse. There was a touch of scorn in Chum's voice. We rode in a bus to this camp where a counselor put together a makeshift cage out of a bucket with a piece of screen bent over the top. And after a few days, the girl's family arrived. There was quite a fuss when her parents saw that their daughter owned a hamster, but her two little brothers set up such a howl that once more I was stuffed into a box with so-called air holes, and after more bouncing and jousting, I arrived at the family's house where I was put into this cage where I have lived ever since. I've been poked at with pencils whenever the children's horrid little friends come over to play. I've been fed hamster food full of nasty little alfalfa pellets that I keep shoving out of my cage. You'd think they'd catch on after a while, but no. They just keep feeding me food mixed with alfalfa pellets. The worst part of my life is that I never get a full day's sleep. Someone's always moving the cage to dust and rattling something against the bars, or running the vacuum cleaner, or practicing violin lessons. It's not an easy life, let me tell you. Well, but how did you get back to camp? Ralph wanted to know. Last year, when Lena was packing her duffel bag for camp, her mother said that since the people who ran the camp had let her buy me, they could put up with me for 2 weeks. She was tired of reminding Lena to feed me and to clean my cage, and she wanted a vacation herself. She said the same thing this year. Oh well, at least it's a change and nobody runs a vacuum cleaner or practices the violin near my cage. Ralph was silent. Chum had given him a lot to think about. Like Chum, he sat swinging to and fro on his wheel, swinging and thinking. And as he swung and thought, something caught his eye. It was the striped forepaw of Catso reaching through the hole in the rusty screen door. Ralph watched in frightened fascination. There's a picture. The screen bulged from the pressure of Catso's shoulder as the paw groped and searched. The rusted screen stretched, and the evil paw with its claw unsheathed reached farther into the craft shop. Where's Sam? Thought Ralph in terror. Why isn't that watchdog watching? The paw withdrew, and Catso's face pressed into the hole. His evil green eyes searched the craft shop. Ralph shrank into a ball in the farthest corner of his cage until he heard a short bark from Sam and summoned his courage to look around. Catso was gone. Whew, but the hole in the rusty screen remained. All right, friends, that is the end of chapter 4. We're going to start chapter 5, and it's called The Personal Mouse. Ralph's life in the cage was never the same after the arrival of the hamster. Chum was picky about his food and fussy about his housekeeping. One corner of his cage had to be his bathroom, another his sleeping quarters, a third the storehouse for the food that he liked. He was forever pushing, shoving, and stomping his cedar shavings. His exercise wheel rasped and creaked whenever he ran, usually while Ralph was trying to take a nap. He had a particularly irritating way of gnawing noisily at the bars on his cage. Hey, why do you do that? Asked Ralph. You can't chew through metal. I'm not trying to chew through the bars, said Chum. I'm wearing down my teeth. Ralph was astounded. Well, don't you want teeth? He asked, thinking how dependent he was upon his own sharp teeth. If I don't chew something hard, my teeth will grow so long I won't be able to eat, Chum explained impatiently. I chew the bars because Lena is too stupid to give me anything hard to chew. Okay, friends, that is where we are going to end today. We are in the middle of chapter 5. Done, done, done. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.